วัสดีค่ะวันนี้เป็นครั้งที่2นะคะเป็นเซสชันที่2ของรายการVideo Conference Teacher Training ซึ่งเป็นความร่วมมือระหว่าง University of Oregon มูลนิธิการศึกษาทางไกลผ่านดาวเทียมวังไกลกังวลสถานทูตสหรัฐสมาคมไทยทิโซและสถาบันภาษาจุฬาลงกรณ์มหาวิทยาลัยในครั้งนี้จะเป็นครั้งที่2ในเซสชันทั้งหมด10 ครั้งนะคะของปีที่2ที่เราทำรายการนี้วันนี้จะเป็นเซสชันที่ชื่อว่า Project Based Learning Project Goals and Checklist นะคะนี่จะต่อจากคราวที่แล้วอาจารย์เลสลี่ได้แนะนำถึงเรื่องการเรียนการสอนภาษาอังกฤษในสถานที่เป็น Project Based Learning ในครั้งนี้เราก็มีวิทยากรรับเชิญนะคะคืออาจารย์ซินดี้ ไคเฟอร์มาเป็นวิทยากรรับเชิญที่จะนำเสนอในเรื่องนี้ต่อไปในด้านเกี่ยวกับจุดประสงค์เป้าประสงค์ของการทำ Project Base แล้วก็เช็คลิสต์คือการประเมินผลค่ะover to you Leslie Good morning Leslie Good morning Cindy
Thank you very much Ajahn Narapal. Well, we're very happy to be back for the second part in our 10-part series for 2005-2006. University of Oregon welcomes Cindy Kiefer back tonight as a return guest speaker. Our goal tonight is to talk about goals and checklists. She'll be with us again next week because goals and checklists are tied very closely to assessment. So please think of this week and next week particularly as being very closely linked. We're working really hard in November and December to get you all lined out and planned in your project. Then we'll be visiting with you again in January and February and sort of bringing it further along and checking in with you and wrapping it up. All right. We have some presentations, some small presentations, I think, from both Hua Hin and Bangkok tonight. We have a good connection with Hua Hin at this time, so why don't we check in with them and see what they've got to show us.
We have the presentation from Ajahn Nujira from Wang Klai Kangwon Hua Hin School, and it's the English camp from Mathayom 1 to 6, and the presentation will take less than 5 minutes. Ajahn Nujira.
Good morning, Leslie.
Good morning.
Yeah. We have the activities in our school last October. It's called English camp. Yeah, we show you the picture.
Okay, from English camp.
Yeah. The purpose is to encourage the students to speak English and to do the work in groups. Yeah, people like that. Here are the pictures. Teachers in our school to join the activities. Okay, next. The students do the activities. Here are some activities.
What kinds of activities are they doing?
There are about 100 students, and we have an English teacher. He is American, yeah, Mr. Lon from Manusor School. He helps us a lot. This is the
So are the
activity.
students doing drawing activities or writing or
we
games? What are they doing?
Yeah, we have many activities. This bogey word, right? Bogey word, yeah. Word bogey, sorry. And sing a song in game. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so it looks like some singing and some movement kinds of activities.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Are these certificates that the students receive?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. They like this activity. Yeah, they said it is fun.
Okay, so they're having fun.
Our teachers, students, yeah.
I see. So it looks like it was a 2-day camp. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like it was very successful. Did you have a topic or a theme or some central kinds of project ideas that were going on?
The English camp project. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Was it open enrollment?
Yeah.
Any students could come?
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Okay,
sharing your
thank
pictures
you.
with us. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hua Hin. Okay, how about Bangkok? Do you have a project to show us tonight?
Yes, good evening, Miss Leslie. What I have did about the project
Bangkok?
that we have learned last time. So I came back to my school, and I have 4 students in my project. And the title of the project is My Body.
Okay.
How and the objective is they can learn
Who
about
drew the pictures?
my student. They have this picture from internet, and then they can draw, and they will put the vocab in the each part of the body later. This is in progress this moment. And so this
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. So the students gathered the pictures and made the handout?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Very nice.
And we gonna show this project we try to do in 1 week about the period of the project, and so they can learn about the vocab, and they do they draw picture, put the vocab in the part of body, so they can learn about the part of body. They can learn about something, vocab, about learn more a little bit from they can learn in the normal class from the teacher, from the textbook, something they can learn more. And I suggest them about part of our body. They should have the scope of learning, what is the scope of learning, and out of body and inside of the body, what can they can know, so they can know more about the vocabulary.
Okay, good. That's a nice example of combining authentic sources from the internet with vocabulary and expanding on lessons that you're already working on. Are the students working in groups or
Yes.
individually?
Yes, for students in group.
In groups. And are the groups all doing the same vocabulary and same pictures, or different groups are doing different things?
Different things. I
Different
got
things. Oh, very
another group as
interesting.
well. They choose another title for study, for do their project as well.
Okay. And when they finish their drawings and they finish their vocabulary, what do you do with the pictures? Do they go up in the classroom somewhere or in a book, or?
Yes, they will present in the board, at the board, and we show to their friend and to another teacher for assessment this task of them.
Okay, great, great. That's a very nice example of taking something from the real world, and it sounds like you're having your students work with multiple audiences, so they're sharing with their peers, they're sharing with other classes or teachers. Very nice. Okay. Well, thank you for those 2 examples. We look forward to hearing some more from you tonight. We have a busy night. We have some new content for you, and we're going to ask you to do 3 activities tonight. Normally, we ask you to do 2, sometimes 3. So Cindy and I will do some of the talking tonight, but we're expecting you to do a fair amount of it as well. All right. How is the sound quality? Are we ready to go forward?
Yes, I think so.
We hear a little
Okay.
bit of echo from your side, but it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, we have a little bit of echo too, but I would say rather than try to reconnect and start all over, I think we can live with it on our side if you can live with it on yours. How about Bangkok? Are you?
Yeah, I think we should go
Okay.
on. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, we'll go on then. Great. Thank you. Thank you all for bearing with the technical difficulties here tonight. All right. Do both sites have handouts? Were you able to download the handouts for Bangkok?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we do have that.
Okay. How about Hua Hin?
We also have it, the whole package.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, let us proceed then. What we're going to do tonight, I'll have our side put up just a real quick slide. We're done with the opening remarks. We're going to go straight into activity 1. We're going to talk about setting goals, then we're going to do some goal setting. We're going to talk about making student project checklists. Then we're going to have you begin doing that as well. And then we'll give you a little bit of homework working with those goals and checklists so that when you come back to the next session, you're ready to talk about assessment as well. So, what we'd like you to do for your first activity is we'd like to remind you that up to this point now, from the first session, your job has been to choose one type of project that you and your classes would like to work with. So we asked you to choose either some kind of report format, or a display format, or a dramatization. So by the time you're here tonight, whether you're in Bangkok or in Hua Hin, or if you're out in one of the ERIC centers or following along with this, please get that in your head or get your notes all organized because we're going to be asking you to talk about the type of project that you've decided to do. What we asked you to bring to this session is the type of project, the number and the age of students that you're working with, the project planning and structure, so who is going to be making the decision about the project and what it involves? Will your students be working in pairs? Will they be working in groups? And what kind of time and resources do you need and do you have available to you? So let's drop this slide for just a minute. And we'll go back and check in with the groups. What we'd like to ask you to do is to get into different groups tonight. So last week or last session, you talked with somebody next to you. Maybe you sat next to a friend and you began sort of getting some introductory ideas about your project. What we'd like you to do tonight is talk to somebody different and explain your project just very quickly. Take a couple minutes to outline these items and then come back together with that information, and we're going to use it for goals and checklists. Hua Hin, are you okay? Do you understand?
Yes. And then we're going to
Okay,
summarize it for the teachers too.
Okay, good. And I'll put the slide back up too during the group time. How about Bangkok? Are you okay? Do you have questions?
Yeah, could you please put the slide up back, for the group work?
Okay, good. Well, I'll let you sum up for the teachers, and we'll put the slide back up.
Okay.
And then we'll let you get into your groups and start working.
Yeah. ค่ะอาจารย์คะสำหรับกิจกรรมแรกนะคะอาจารย์เลสลี่ก็อยากจะให้อาจารย์เนี่ยดิสคัสกันในกลุ่มนะคะแบ่งเป็นกลุ่ม 3-4 คนดิสคัสเกี่ยวกับว่าโปรเจกต์ที่อาจารย์จะให้นักเรียนทำเนี่ยนะคะว่าจำนวนนักเรียนแล้วก็อายุของนักเรียนนะคะก็ตามชั้นที่อาจารย์สอนอย่างเมื่อกี้อาจารย์ท่านที่พรีเซนต์เมื่อกี้ก็บอกว่าเป็นกลุ่ม4 คนนี่กลุ่มกี่คนนะคะถึงจะเหมาะแล้วก็ท็อปิกควรจะเป็นอะไรลักษณะควรจะเป็นอะไรนะคะโปรเจกต์ไทป์ก็อย่างที่อาจารย์เลสลี่บอกเมื่อกี้จะเป็นรีพอร์ตเป็นดิสเพลย์เป็นการแสดงอะไรอย่างนั้นก็ได้นะคะแล้วก็การแพลนนะคะแล้วก็อย่างที่บอกว่าควรจะทำงานเป็นกลุ่มหรือเป็นคู่ แล้วก็มีเวลาให้นักเรียนไหมในห้องแค่ไหนนอกห้องแค่ไหนนะคะแล้วก็ resources นะคะนักเรียนควรจะหาจากที่ไหนได้บ้างก็คงจะต้องแนะนำนักเรียนนะอาจารย์คุยกันเกี่ยวกับเรื่องนี้เพื่อที่จะแพลนโปรเจกต์ให้นักเรียนนะคะก็คงใช้เวลาประมาณ5 นาทีนะคะค่ะเชิญเลยค่ะ
Are we ready to wrap up and move on to the next part?
มีกลุ่มไหนเสร็จบ้างไหมคะเสร็จนะคะอาจารย์สุชนาคะกลุ่มนี้เสร็จแล้วค่ะค่ะ
I can see Hua Hian. They look like they're coming back together. How about Bangkok? So Hua Hian looks ready to move forward. How about Bangkok? Are you ready to move forward?
Yeah, we've got one group to present.
I'm going to ask you, we've only got 1 hour left and we have a lot of ground to cover. How about if you hold on to your idea, your group, and we're going to talk a little bit about goals and then combine the information together and do a presentation after that.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. All right. Cindy's going to talk to us a little bit about how you go about setting goals.
Okay, I think that with project work, so it doesn't just appear to be busy work, needs to have very clearly defined goals. And once you have clearly defined goals, then that will drive your decisions about what kind of instruction you need to do for your students, what kind of materials you need, how your curriculum will be developed, and how you will assess your students that they have achieved the goals. Basically, before we talked a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy, and there are 3 kinds of goals that you can have. You can have skill-based goals, where you want students after or during the project to learn certain facts or gain certain knowledge. You could have skill-based goals, for example, having the students learn to use the computer or to word process. Or you could have affective goals, where you want the student to change their values or recognize their values and attitudes and interests. You can have all 3 kinds of goals in one project. You can have multiple goals in one project. But the goals are really important because you attach to those goals something that can be measured to show that the students have been successful in achieving the goals.
So when you're doing project-based learning in your class or working with your teachers, who sets those goals? Who makes that determination?
Well, it depends, I think, on the level of the students and what you want, what kind of project you are doing. It can be done solely by the teacher, or with some preparation and guidance, it can be done from the student's perspective, and it can be done with both people. It can also be done with from the outside, with bringing in experts from the community who have projects and goals that they would like the students to learn too.
If it's the first-time project, let's assume that a number of the teachers are working with projects for the first time in their classes, or even if they're not, maybe their students are. And when you think about the balance of who makes most of the decisions with the goals, the teachers or the students, how would you weight that?
Well, if it's the first time, I would recommend that most of the decision-making be done by the teacher, because part of the goals is also determining what level of expertise the students need to have to accomplish the goals. So sometimes students get very ambitious and want to do something that they really don't have the skills to be successful to reach the goal. So in the beginning, I think maybe the teacher should model and provide room for students to give feedback. And when you are doing the projects, there are many assessment techniques, which I think we'll talk more about next time, to gauge what the students' attitudes are, what they think they're learning, what they think they need, and what they like about the project or what's not working for them when doing the project. So there's lots of, even though the teacher may set the goals, there's lots of ways to involve students in managing the direction of the project.
So it sounds like one direction that people could take is, if this is your first time working with projects, do a lot of the thinking or the planning or the goal setting in the beginning. As you go along, there will be additional opportunities for involving students as well.
Right, because project work is not static. It can start out very simple and grow and become more challenging for the students according to their interests and according to what information they're finding. It may lead them in different directions than planned, but the skills attached to the goals probably will remain about the same.
Okay. We're not hearing much sound feedback on our side. Are you able to hear us, Bangkok and Hua Hin?
Yes, very clear. Yeah.
Just a little echo, but we hear you fine.
Oh, okay, good. Just double checking, making sure we're not losing anyone tonight. Okay. Moving on to our next slide, and we're going to be working on these goals here tonight. One question that I'm often asked when I'm working with projects and students and teachers for the first time is, when do you give students this information? Do you give them the goals as you go along? Do you give them at the beginning? How much information do they need to get started?
Well, I think that students need to know the goals right away. They need to know the project and why they are doing the project, so they don't think it's just busy work or a fun time, that they are really doing it to learn something. And so I think the goals should be announced to the student, and they should also know how they will be assessed, what is going to be the final outcome of the project. It's really important that they know goals, because, especially in project work, because they have to work together to accomplish the goal and to be successful in the assessment.
And even if they're not working together, if you have chosen to have students work individually on projects, it's very likely, if you aren't already as a result of this set of sessions, we hope that you'll consider some peer assessment and peer formative feedbacks kinds of resources, so that even if their projects are being done individually, that they're still sharing information and working together in other capacities as well.
Well, throughout the project, there should be lots of formative evaluation going on from the teacher, from their companion students, and even from outside people.
And even from themselves, too.
Right.
Yeah,
so self-assessment is very important.
Good. So we'll be talking a lot more about assessment. You'll be hearing about that next week as well. All right, so students ought to have the project overview. They should have goals. They should have some kind of checklist or roadmap, some kind of idea about how they're going to get from the goals to the end, and then a very clear idea at the beginning of how they will be assessed. You don't want any surprises with assessment. Yeah. Okay.
And you can use that checklist, of course, to mirror your assessment.
Sure, and we'll be talking about it. We're really talking about 3 aspects over the next 2 weeks: setting the goals, coming up with a to-do kind of checklist for students, and then an assessment plan. So those 3 things should be tied very closely together. Before we move on to types of goals, do you want to do a quick translation for people, or shall we continue going ahead?
Just a quick one, yeah. If I may.
Ajahn Naraporn?
Yeah. Do you hear me? Yes. ค่ะอาจารย์คะ
Yes, translate, or yes, go ahead?
Yes, translate. Yeah. ค่ะอาจารย์คะในส่วนนี้นะคะก็ก่อนที่จะให้นักเรียนทำโปรเจกต์เนี่ยทางอาจารย์เลสลี่และอาจารย์ซินดี้ก็บอกว่าควรจะเตรียมนักเรียนในเรื่องอะไรบ้างอย่างแรกคือ Project Overview ก็คือว่าให้ทราบเข้าโครงทราบภาพรวมของโปรเจกต์ที่จะให้นักเรียนทำนะคะประการที่2คือ Goal นะคะคือ Set Goal วัตถุประสงค์ว่าทำไมนักเรียนถึงต้องทำโปรเจกต์อันนี้แล้วก็ประการที่3ก็จะมีให้ใกล้ว่าบอกว่า Final Outcome คือผลผลิตของโปรเจกต์นี้คืออะไรแล้วก็อย่างที่4คือการประเมินผลซึ่งอาจารย์ก็บอกจะประกอบด้วยหลายๆอย่างอาจจะมีทั้งเพื่อนประเมินตัวเองแล้วก็ควรจะประเมินตลอดทั้งโปรเจกต์ไม่ใช่เฉพาะตอนท้ายค่ะก็ขอสั้นๆแค่นี้ก่อนนะคะ Over to you, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, once again, pardon us in advance tonight, if we check in with you frequently on sound, we're still getting a fair amount of echo, and Bangkok in particular is dropping off at times, and so if we check in with you a lot, it's because we're not hearing you at times. What we'd like to talk to next are about some, in a little bit more detail about types of goals. Cindy mentioned earlier when we talked about critical thinking in the last set of sessions, we had different kinds of goals, for different kinds of learning.
Right.
And those same goals and types of learning will apply to your project-based learning as well. So what we've done on your handout for tonight, and for the purpose of structuring the projects for this particular set of sessions, is we've broken the categories into several types of goals.
Okay.
And these are not goals or categories that you have to use. They're simply some suggestions.
Well, in any kind of project, then you probably would have some language skill goals that they need to develop. Maybe there are certain verb tenses you're expecting them to use. And in the sample that was shown earlier, that was a vocabulary focus.
Right.
And at the same time, they're learning content manner, the parts of the body and how the body works together. Do you want to say something about procedural mechanic goals?
Yeah, you may have some procedural goals as well. I've been getting a lot more email this time on this set of sessions, and one of the teachers who wrote to me recently commented on the fact that she had trouble getting students to complete their work on time. So as part of your set of goals, as part of your checklist, you may want to include some points or some feedback, some acknowledgement for students who finish their work on time. So it could be that students complete all the pieces of the project. They complete it on time. They complete it with attention to things that you've been working on in class. Perhaps you've been focusing on sentence structure. So begin a sentence with a capital, end a sentence with punctuation. Perhaps you've been looking at paragraph structure, and your project involves some kind of writing, and so you're looking for that indentation. And so you may give separate points or separate assessment and separate goals for these different kinds of learning areas. So it's possible for individuals or for groups to really excel, to do really well and be very successful, for example, in their progress with language. And then maybe they didn't put quite as much time in on finishing things neatly and doing the capital letters and the punctuation. And so depending on, again, on your goals, your checklist and your assessment are going to reflect what it is that you're wanting them to do. And I think one caveat or one recommendation that we'd like to offer tonight, frequently when we see new teachers or new classes beginning with project-based learning, they want to do it all.
Right.
They just, you want your students to be able to do everything. And you wind up with these lists of goals that are 10 pages long, and the checklists are 5 pages long. And it's real easy, I think, for things to get over large. So when in doubt, I think it's better to choose just a few goals, a few language goals, maybe a couple of procedural goals, and try it out in your class and try it with your students and see what works and what doesn't, and see, for that amount of time, for that scope of a project, were the goals just about right? Were there too many? Were there more that you could have used? And it'll depend, too, on your particular student group. So we all know that within different classes, even at the same level, different groups of students may require different kinds of goals or categories of goals as well.
In the affective domain, the goals can be such things as cooperating in a group, collaborating together. You can do assessments throughout the project, work with a student, reflects and talks about, am I a good participant? Are people listening to me? Am I contributing? Anything in the affective area that deals with their values or attitudes or interests is something to include as a goal, along with the language and the content matter and any mechanical goals you may have too.
This is a good opportunity if you're working on any kind of classroom management areas in your class, and you're looking for positive ways to reinforce students and giving them goals to sort of work toward. this is absolutely an appropriate place to work that kind of reinforcement and that kind of evaluation or feedback in as well.
Right. This is an easy area to see how your goals will determine how your instruction, what you teach the students and how you evaluate the students, and how you teach the students to become independent learners.
Okay, good. Well, I think we're about ready for activity 2. We're going to jump right in, and what we're going to ask you to do tonight is to look at your handout that goes with the lecture. And for those of you who are in Hua Hin and Bangkok, I know that you have your handouts tonight. Those of you following along in the ERIC centers or outside of our two primary two-way classes, you can get the handouts from the website, and we'll be giving you that website periodically throughout tonight's presentation. Basically, what we're asking you to do for activity number 2 is to work back in your groups again and think about your project and think about what categories of goals and what items within those categories you would like to set. And you don't have to decide tonight. We're asking you to simply begin thinking about it and to make some kind of a decision before you come back to the next session. Okay, questions from Hua Hin and Bangkok. Is it clear what activity number 2 is?
Yeah. อาจารย์คะในกลุ่มกิจกรรมกลุ่มครั้ง
I'm
ที่
not
2
hearing anything. How about from Hua Hin?
It is clear, and then we're gonna summarize it for the teacher again.
Yeah. Leslie, can you hear
Okay,
me?
so Naraporn, you're going to summarize for them?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
ค่ะกิจกรรมที่2นะคะอาจารย์อาจารย์เลสลี่ก็ขอให้อาจารย์ดิสคัสในกลุ่มนะคะก็เกี่ยวกับเรื่องว่า goal ในการที่จะทำโปรเจกต์นี้คืออะไรนะคะแล้วใครจะเป็นคนเซต goal นั้นนะคะแล้ว goal นั้นอย่างเช่นที่อาจารย์ให้เมื่อกี้ค่ะในค่ะที่ขึ้นบนจอเนี่ยนะคะ goal ที่เกี่ยวกับ language skills vocab หรือว่า content matter นะคะหรือว่าเกี่ยวกับความถูกต้องของภาษานะคะหรือว่า goal ที่เป็น effective ดูพฤติกรรมของนักเรียนในการทำกิจกรรมทำโปรเจกต์นะคะความร่วมมือนะคะการมี contribution มีส่วนร่วมอะไรพวกนั้นนะคะค่ะอาจารย์ discuss สัก2 นาทีได้ไหมคะ 2-3 นาทีค่ะเชิญค่ะ
How's everybody doing? Do you need a little bit more time?
Yes, yeah. I'm afraid some of the teachers are not quite clear about the types of goals, so I'm going to do the explanation in Thai again. Yeah, elaborate
Okay,
more.
good. That's
yeah.
fine. Let them take as long as they need. This part is really important.
Yeah. Okay. ค่ะอาจารย์
And
คะ
Ajahn Naraporn,
Yes.
please remind them, if they just look at page 3 of the handout,
Yeah.
there's a list of some suggested examples there. They can just react to those.
Yeah. Right. Indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
ค่ะอาจารย์คะกิจกรรมที่อาจารย์กำลังทำอยู่นี้นะคะอาจารย์กรุณาดูในชีทแผ่นที่3นะคะที่เขียนหัวข้อว่า project goals ซึ่งเป็นตัวอย่างนะคะที่อาจารย์เลสลี่กับอาจารย์ซินดี้ให้ไว้นะคะตัวอย่างของ goals แบบต่างๆขอทบทวนเรื่อง types of goals อีกนิดนึงนะคะอาจารย์บางท่านอาจจะยังไม่ค่อยเคลียร์goal ประเภทแรกก็คือ language skills นะคะ goal ทางภาษานะคะซึ่งถ้าเราก็จะ set goal ว่าโปรเจกต์นี้เราจะเน้นด้านไหนเน้น tense อะไรนะคะเน้น vocab หรือไม่อะไรอย่างนั้นgoal ประเภทที่2คือ content matter นะคะอย่างเมื่อกี้ที่มีอาจารย์ present เรื่อง body นะคะอวัยวะต่างๆของร่างกายอาจารย์ก็อาจจะ set goal ว่าโอเคตรงนี้เราจะทำให้นิสิตให้นักเรียนทำเรื่องนี้นะคะเรื่องเกี่ยวกับสุขภาพเรื่องเกี่ยวกับวิทยาศาสตร์เรื่องเกี่ยวกับอะไรในสโคปแค่ไหนนะคะแล้วก็ goal ประเภทที่3 procedural กับ mechanics เนี่ยนะคะ procedural ก็อย่างเช่นว่าเรากำหนดขั้นตอนค่ะอาจารย์นะคะว่าสมมุติว่าโปรเจกต์นี้ให้นักเรียนทำเนี่ย2 อาทิตย์เราก็อาจจะกำหนดว่าจะทำยังไงเช็คยังไงให้นักเรียนเนี่ยทำให้เสร็จภายใน2 อาทิตย์อาจจะเช็คเป็นครั้งๆนะคะเราก็บอกโกให้นักเรียนว่าต้อง2 อาทิตย์นะแล้วก็อาจจะต้องมาให้ครูดูทุกอาทิตย์หรือว่าทุกอะไรก็ว่าไปนะคะในส่วนที่เป็น mechanics ก็ความถูกต้องของภาษา capital ไหมนะคะ punctuation ถูกหรือเปล่าอะไรงั้นซึ่งอันนั้นก็อาจจะลดหลั่นกันไปนะคะถ้าอาจารย์ไปเน้นทางด้านอื่นมากทางนี้ก็อาจจะลดลงนะคะ ส่วน goal ประเภทที่ 4 effective นะคะ behavioral อันนั้นก็คือดูความร่วมมือของนักเรียนที่ช่วยกันทำโปรเจกต์นี้ contribution การมีส่วนร่วมของนักเรียนนะคะซึ่งอันนี้ก็อาจจะเช็คได้จากอาจารย์เป็นคนเช็คเองหรือว่าให้นักเรียนในกลุ่มช่วยกันเช็คนะคะช่วยกันตรวจสอบได้นะคะคือตั้งโกไว้แล้วก็มี4ประเภทนะอาจารย์ก็ให้น้ำหนักแตกต่างกันได้นะคะแล้วก็ในแผ่นที่3ของ Handout เนี่ยค่ะที่หัวข้อว่า Project Goal ซึ่งเป็นตัวอย่างของ Goal นะคะในชุดแรกก็อย่างเช่นว่าเป็น Goal ทางด้านเซตว่าเป็นทางด้าน reading นะคะทางตัวอย่างที่2ก็ Goal ทางด้าน writing ตัวอย่างที่3ก็ Goal ทางด้าน speaking ตัวอย่างที่4ก็ listeningนะคะตัวอย่างที่5 mechanics นั่นก็เป็น goal ทางด้านprocedural mechanics นะคะอย่างเช่นบอกว่าจะต้องทำให้เสร็จ complete the project plan นะคะแล้ว final project จะต้องเรียบร้อยต้องถูกต้องต้องสะอาดต้องอะไรอ่านง่ายถ้าเขียนก็ต้องอ่านง่ายนะคะแล้ว goal อื่นๆก็อย่างเป็น effective goal อย่างที่ว่านะคะอย่างเช่นว่านักเรียนเนี่ยจะต้องมีส่วนร่วม participate fully นะคะแต่ละคนจะต้องมีส่วนร่วมอย่างเต็มที่ในการทำโปรเจกต์นั้นนะคะอย่างนั้นเป็นต้นค่ะนั่นเป็นตัวอย่าง goal เพราะฉะนั้นตอนนี้อาจารย์ก็กิจกรรมก็คืออาจารย์ลองเซต goal ขึ้นมาสำหรับโปรเจกต์ที่อาจารย์ลองนึกขึ้นมาสักโปรเจกต์หนึ่งนะคะว่าอยากจะเน้นด้านไหน content เน้นอะไร language เน้นอะไรนะคะต้องการให้เรียนมีส่วนร่วมยังไงค่ะขออีกสัก2 นาทีได้ไหมคะบางท่านอาจจะ wrap up ได้แล้วค่ะไม่ทราบทางหัวหินเสร็จหรือยังคะมีใครที่จะสรุปได้บ้างไหมคะอาจารย์นีน่า
We can share if you would like first to go first อาจารย์นราพร
let me see they're still working here มีอาจารย์ท่านใดมีกลุ่มใดเสร็จไหมคะ
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, please.
We want to make sure that people have concept of setting goals tonight. And we want to make sure that they understand that page 3 of the handout offers them some examples of what goals might look like. But we're not asking them to decide tonight. So as long as they understand, and they understand that they can look at page 3 and they can basically say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, or they can add different goals or they can change the goals. And so they don't have to make decisions tonight, just that they can be sure that they understand what the goals are and how they might set them, and that a few goals, just a few goals, is better than a lot of goals.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
ค่ะ yes อาจารย์คะคืออาจารย์เลสลี่บอกว่าวันนี้ยังไม่ต้องเซตโกทั้งหมดนะคะเพียงแต่ว่าดูตัวอย่างในหน้า3นะคะแล้วก็อาจารย์อาจจะเพิ่มเติมบางอันนะคะเห็นด้วยไม่เห็นด้วยอะไรยังไงนะคะก็คงเอาไว้แค่นั้นก่อนเพราะว่าเรายังมีเวลาอีกนานอีกยาวนานที่จะทำโปรเจกต์นะคะที่จะเซตโกอย่างละเอียดค่ะ Yes Leslie I think you can go on now
Okay, thank you very much, Ajahn Okay. I have confidence that they can come up with these goals.
It's not easy to write a good goal.
It takes a little practice, but I think if you set out for yourself a goal to write goals for next week, I mean, if you come next week and you have three solid goals, then you're in good shape.
Yes. What do you want your student to be able to do with the language?
Right.
What content would you like the student to learn or be able to do with the content? What behavior would you like to see from your students? What end product would you like your students to have?
Right, and these should be just very, very simple statements. You'll notice if you look at page 3, the statements are things like the student reads materials from, whether it's brochures, it's bulletin boards, it's newspapers, it's books, whatever it is, as part of their research. Students read other students' work as part of their project planning. And these are very simple subject, verb, object kinds of statements. These are statements that should be very clear to you. They should be in a language that is also very clear to the students. So they just need to be very clear, very simple statements. All right.
They should be clear enough that your students can understand them themselves. That's very important.
Right. And that's another reason why that's another advantage to having students set the goals as well.
That's true.
It can be more time consuming. It's definitely more time consuming to have students involved in this kind of planning process. But once you've taken your students through a project and you're beginning to work on a second one, to ask them to set the goals is a very reasonable expectation. And they can do it at the level of the language with which they're accustomed to working. And in fact, it can be quite motivating and stretch them to go beyond that limit as well. So you want to provide them models. You want to have very clear statements. It doesn't have to be overly complicated.
No.
Okay. What we'd like to talk to you next about, and this is going to lead us into our third activity for the evening, are checklists. And what a checklist is, just like what it sounds. It's basically a to-do list. So when you're at home or you're at school and you're trying to remember a lot of things to do, let's say, for example, you need to go shopping. Let's drop the slide for a minute. Let's say you need to go shopping. What do you do when you need to go shopping?
You make a list.
You make a list.
And you plan where you're going first, second, and third, so you don't waste your time and energy.
Exactly. So I know I need some food. I need some items for the house. My children need some school supplies. And my husband tore his shirt. He needs a new shirt. So I make a list. I write it down because my brain can't remember all of that. And then I put those things into categories, and I think about where I'm going to go shopping in my town or village, and I make an order or a list to them. And that's exactly what a checklist is for a project. You've got your project topic, you've got your theme, you know how long it's going to take, you know what resources you need, you've got your goals. You will have set your goals by this point. Now we need a to-do list. How do we get there? How do we get from the beginning to the end? That's what a checklist is. And this is what your students need and you need so that you have a kind of roadmap to follow along the way. So what should a checklist look like? Let's talk about what a good checklist looks like. Okay.
Well, your checklist should match your goals.
All right.
Everything on your checklist should feed into what you want to accomplish in the project. It should have the different categories or the different parts of the project that need to come together in the right order.
Yes. And we've got some examples of them on page 4, and we're going to ask you to look at them. What we try to do when we're making these checklists is, again, use very clear statements. We may even use some of the same statements that we used on the goals. So I'm going to look at my goals. I'm going to translate my goals into a to-do list. And so it makes sense that a lot of those same verbs and concepts and content are going to carry over to the checklist.
And sometimes your checklists have to be very step by step, depending on the level of your students and how much scaffolding they need to go from one activity to another. Sometimes with higher level students or more independent learners, your steps can be bigger. And so when we look at the worksheet, the planning checklist, you can see that things are, in this case, I think are pretty broad or pretty general. But if I had very low level students, then I would break it down into smaller increments, and so that they knew every day what they were doing also.
Okay.
This might be a big overview for even a smaller checklist or more detailed checklist.
So you might have checklists within checklists.
That's right.
Depending on how many steps there are and how much time and
how much support your students need.
There you go. You'll notice when you're looking at these that what we try to do when we make these checklists is, as we said, use very clear statements. We also try to use a very neutral or positive tone. And we try to model good language. So we used a set of command structures here. So write a research plan, do the research, put the research results in a project planner, make a list, make a day-by-day schedule, begin the work plan. So these are commands. You'll recognize these are commands. They're very, very simple, very clear, and there's little boxes. You can actually go down the list and check things off or write the dates that you did them.
Well, actually, these boxes are really important when it comes to assessment, because you can say to the student, you forgot to do this, and so that makes your project a weaker project than you could have had if you had done things in the order and followed the checklist. So I think the physical check-off puts the responsibility on the student to get it done and to do it in the right order.
And you might actually do a check kind of mark, or you might have them use dates or initials, but this actual physical record keeping or accounting of what they're doing makes a track record when you're ready to do assessment, when they're ready to do their own assessment.
And it also gives the student a feeling that they're making accomplishments. I've done this, and on the next one, on the next one, so they don't feel overwhelmed and try to jump to the end of the project before they've done the foundation work for the project.
Good, good. So again, it follows a kind of logical order. We built a very small model or example into this. You may need to give your students more models or more examples, depending on the amount of experience that they've had with checklists before. Okay. As we said tonight earlier, we're going to do very little talking, just kind of outlining, and then we're going to have you do a lot of the work in your groups tonight. So we're going to jump pretty quickly here into activity number 3, which is to begin to think about making a checklist. And if you look on page 4 of your handout, you'll see some examples of a checklist. And if you put the checklist side by side with the goals, you'll notice that there is a lot of commonality or a lot of shared content between them, and this is what you would expect. So if you look at the goals on page 3, you'll see that there are some research goals. We would like our students to be able to conduct research. And we're using the term research here in a very loose kind of sense. It may be classic research in the terms of looking at encyclopedias or books or that kind of thing, but it could also be verbal or oral based. It could be doing surveys, conducting surveys, taking polls, questionnaires. It could be observation. It could be looking around and counting things in their environment, whether it's insects or animals or road signs or other people's behaviors. So when we say research, we mean that very, very loosely. If you've chosen a classic kind of report format, you may be going more in written and reading kinds of directions, but don't forget the speaking stuff. That's a great way to build in speaking kinds of skills. So the goals on page 4 are research-oriented, work plan-oriented, and product-oriented. So it's a kind of a checklist. So,
and again, your goals determine your checklist, because all of your instruction goes around the goals.
Right.
The goals are the core of the class or the curriculum.
This should be driving. The goals will drive your checklist, and they will also determine your assessment. So what we'd like you to do now is get your page 3 and page 4, or get your goals. For those of you who don't have the pages, get your goals on one side of that desk next to you, and start looking at the example checklist and start saying yes or no to checklist items, or coming up with some that you would like to see on your own checklist. And again, we're not asking you to finish it here tonight. We're asking you to begin thinking about it so that you can work on it prior to the next session. So let's give Ajahn Naraporn a minute to recap, and then we'll give you some time for the last activity for tonight. Does that sound good?
Thank you, Leslie. อาจารย์คะในกิจกรรมที่ 3 นะคะก็เป็นเรื่อง checklist ซึ่งอาจารย์จะดูได้จาก handout แผ่นที่ 4 นะคะซึ่งหัวข้อคือ project planning checklist นะคะซึ่งอันนี้อาจารย์เลสลี่กับอาจารย์ซินนี่ก็ให้เป็นตัวอย่างไว้นะคะว่า checklist เนี่ยจะเขียนในลักษณะไหนบ้างประโยชน์ของ checklist เนี่ยนะคะก็คือเป็นการเตรียมอะค่ะนะคะแล้วก็ทำขั้นตอนเพื่อที่จะให้นักเรียนเนี่ย follow ตามนี้เวลาเขาทำงานนะคะทำโปรเจกต์แล้วก็เช็คลิสต์เนี่ยก็ควรจะอาจารย์ถ้าเมื่ออาจารย์สร้างโกแล้วกำหนดโกแล้วเช็คลิสต์ควรจะไปด้วยกันกับโกนะคะสอดคล้องกันไปแล้วก็ให้เป็น step by step นะคะแล้วก็ให้ชัดเจนแล้วก็อาจจะมีตัวอย่างนะคะอย่างเช่นตัวอย่างใน handout ที่4เนี่ยนะคะอย่างเช่นในเช็คลิสต์แรกนะคะ do research เนี่ยนะคะเป็นเน้นทาง research skill นะคะก็อาจจะการที่จะนักเรียนจะไปค้นคว้านะคะอาจจะจากหนังสือจากอินเทอร์เน็ตจากการสัมภาษณ์จากการเซอร์เวย์ทำ questionnaire ทำโพลอะไรก็ได้ซึ่งอันนั้นเนี่ยนักเรียนก็จะต้องทำขั้นตอนนะคะว่าตอนนี้ทำอะไรบ้าง write a research plan ต่อไปคืออะไรนะคะอาจจะเขียน questionnaire นะคะแล้วก็เก็บ questionnaire อะไรอย่างนั้นแล้วก็ทำช่องไว้ข้างหน้าเพื่อที่นักเรียนจะได้ติ๊กได้ว่าตรงนี้ทำแล้วตรงนี้ทำแล้วนะคะจะได้ไม่หลุดขั้นตอนหรือว่าในเช็คลิสต์สุดท้ายนะคะซึ่งเป็น product oriented ที่อาจารย์เลสลี่บอกก็คือว่าสมมุติว่าให้นักเรียนทำอะไรสักอย่างหนึ่งเนี่ยนะคะก็มีเช็คลิสต์อยู่6ขั้นตอนด้วยกันนะคะเริ่มทำเริ่มร่างนะคะแล้วก็เก็บข้อมูลนะคะแล้วก็ปรับปรุงแล้วก็นำเสนอหรืออะไรอย่างนั้นนะคะแล้วก็ให้นักเรียนได้มีโอกาสได้เช็คอาจารย์ลองดูอันนี้แล้วก็ดูซิว่าอาจารย์เห็นด้วยไหมนะคะอาจารย์เลสลี่บอกว่าแค่ดูว่า yes no นะคะว่าโอเคไหมแล้วก็อาจจะเพิ่มเติมทีหลังซึ่งตรงนี้เนี่ยเรายังไม่ทำให้เสร็จตรงนี้อันนี้เป็นแค่ไอเดียที่อาจารย์นำเสนอว่าการทำเช็คลิสต์ทำแบบนี้นะคะค่ะอาจารย์ลองดูนะคะสัก2 นาทีดีไหมคะลอง go through checklist ที่เป็นตัวอย่างนะคะ
Okay, how are those checklists coming? Do you need a little bit more time or?
อาจารย์คะได้ดูเช็คลิสต์แล้วนะคะโอเคนะคะไม่มีปัญหานะคะ I think they're doing fine Leslie yeah
Okay.
you
How
can
are people doing with the content better tonight? We're doing a lot of translating and using Thai. Is it because it's really new content?
yeah it's a little bit we have
I think it's the nature of the project base. They're trying to brainstorm ideas, and yes, they do speak Thai, but they also have to think about the topic in English. So
Okay.
using both, but because of brainstorming aspect, they do discuss it in Thai.
Okay, good. Well, it sounds like people are having really productive sessions. And when I look at the groups, they're very engaged. They're talking and really on task. I want to make sure people leave with a clear idea tonight. What do you think would be most useful, to have some time for presentations or questions and answers?
I think question and answer would be better yeah
Okay. How about from Hua Hian? Questions and answers?
Question and answers.
Okay. All right. Before we go into questions and answers, we'd like to offer just a couple of management tips for all of this too. As you're getting around to setting your goals and to creating these checklists, you need to think about what you're going to do with your students' materials. So what we're going to suggest is that you not spend a lot of money or look to expensive resources, but that you do think a little bit about some organizational kinds of strategies, I guess. So what we did was we looked around the office and we just looked for things that we had readily available, thinking, how can we help our students organize their things? So one idea that we came up with was just to clip the projects in a kind of a clip like this. Maybe with a cover sheet, maybe with the project list underneath, but just simple clips. You could clip them. You could put them in like a kind of a tray like this, or you could put them in a box, maybe a box, something like this, or even we found another kind of old box that's about the right size, something like this as well. So you don't have to have things in expensive containers, and you don't have to go out and buy new things, but maybe look around and see what kinds of organizational containers and structures you might already have. Another option would be to do, this is a recycled file folder, and what we did was we put a copy of the checklist right on the outside so that students can see at a glance what they've done, and you can see what's inside the folder. And then on the inside, you can put any supporting documents or the goals. And these are the kinds of things that can just fit right into the boxes like this. And you maybe just need one box per class, something like that.
And the advantage of having a checklist on the front is you can see where different groups are, what they have accomplished already.
Yeah, just very quickly. You've got big classes, lots of students that you're monitoring.
Right.
You just look really quickly at those checklists and you can see what's been done.
And maybe even group your students according to where they are on the checklist to give them more additional instructions and what they should accomplish that day.
So if you don't have folders, if you have like old envelopes laying around, you can do a very similar kind of thing. Maybe put the checklist right on the outside of the envelope. So at just a quick glance, you can see what students have accomplished, and they can as well. Some other kinds of things we found laying around, if you have notebooks like this, and you can put things in the pockets or into the binders inside. Or
these are nice too because students like to decorate the outside.
Oh yeah, they can decorate them.
They can slide photos in here or pictures that they have drawn.
Or paste them on the front.
Right.
Yeah. Or if you don't have anything, or these are too large, you can go to kind of a smaller folder system. Likewise, this one has just simple pockets and just something to tuck the papers into. So as you're starting to create these checklists and these goals, be thinking about how you're going to organize your students into groups, how you're going to have them help with this tracking, because it's really just too much for one teacher to track all of that. And also you want them to be autonomous learners. You want this to be a learner-centered kind of experience and for them to take responsibility for the progress that they're making. And this kind of system can help with that. I have a couple of pictures as well. Do we have our slides back? We had here's an example from a school in Thailand, and please excuse my pronunciation. This is Suratampitak, I think, something like that. And if you look behind the young lady in the foreground, you'll see boxes very much like the ones that we showed you tonight. And the teacher has dropped some folders in them, lots of different kinds of folders. And the students have their projects all organized in this way. Visited another classroom where the teacher was using bookshelves and tables. Now the advantage to these is that all the classes stay in one place together. The disadvantage would be is if you don't have your own classroom and you have to move around to lots of different classrooms, you might want to consider something that moves with you. It could be a bag. You may actually carry the boxes with you. What you're seeing in this picture, if you look to the background, is a cart that has wheels down on the bottom, and the teacher wheels the cart all around with her from classroom, or him, from classroom to classroom. So you may consider carrying them as well.
Well, the cart looks good because they can have what they need to do during the project with their coloring or cutting, in addition to their projects themselves. You have the materials to do the task.
Again, you may or may not have access to things like carts. You probably have access to boxes and folders. Yeah. Okay. So before we jump into our some quick questions and answers, what we'd like to invite you to do for next session is to bring your goals and bring your checklists so that we can use them to plan assessment. That's our next piece, is assessment. If you are following along with us tonight in the ERIC centers or other locations and you don't yet have the handouts, it's not too late. You can go to the website on the screen, thaiuo.uoregon.edu, and for all of the sessions, both for last year and for this year, you can find copies of all of the handouts, of tonight's PowerPoint slide presentation, of all the resources that you need. So it's not too late. If you don't have them yet, please go and visit the website and make copies, and you'll have a chance then to work with them before we meet again. Okay. Let's take a break from the slides and see what kinds of questions people have for us tonight.
อาจารย์
Okay.
ที่หัวหิ
Any
น
questions?
ค่ะและที่กรุงเทพไม่ทราบมีคำถามอะไรจะถามไหมคะอาจารย์เข้าใจชัดเจนนะคะเรื่อง goal กับ checklist เพราะว่าคราวหน้าอาจารย์จะต้องนำ goal แล้วก็ checklist ของอาจารย์มานะคะอาจารย์ต้องไปคิดอย่างละเอียดแล้วนะคะว่า goal ที่จะให้นักเรียนทำโปรเจกต์คืออะไร checklist นะคะที่การแพลนที่จะทำโปรเจกต์นั้นคืออะไรนะคะอาจารย์ต้องทำมาเป็นการบ้านเพราะว่าคราวต่อไปจะเป็นเรื่องหัวข้อเรื่อง assessment ในการประเมินผลนะคะเราต้องมี goal มี checklist ถึงจะกำหนดได้ว่าจะประเมินอย่างไรค่ะอาจารย์มีคำถามไหมคะทางหัวหินอาจารย์นีน่ามีคำถามไหมคะ
I think that thinking about it, we don't have any question at this time. Thank you.
Okay. How about, does anyone have anything they'd like to share? I know there were some people who had some project ideas.
Yes.
Anybody want to try out their goals? Anybody feeling brave?
I think we have one question from Bangkok side, Leslie.
In my mind, I think for the word research is very hard for Thai students. So do you have any answer to for Thai students?
Okay, our sound is not very good.
Okay, the question
Can
is that.
I ask you to repeat?
Yeah, the question is that she thinks that the word research is quite hard for Thai students. So she's wondering whether you have any other word for that.
Research,
Oh, research doesn't have to be hard.
investigate.
Yeah, research doesn't have to be like academic research. Let's say, for example, we had that very nice project tonight with the parts of the body.
Right.
Parts of the body. And let's say as a part 2 to parts of the body, the students were going to talk about what we put on our bodies. It could be clothing, could be shoes, could be jewelry, could be cosmetics, it could be glasses, just all the different things that we put on our body. By way of research, one thing they might do is they might simply observe. They might go to a local market and sit for 1 hour. And all the people who go by and simply keep a tally, keep a score. How many people wore red t-shirts? How many people wore black pants? How many people wore glasses? How many people wore bracelets on their arms? And then come back and report. So the vocabulary and the observation process can be directly linked to the project, but also appropriate to their language level. So that's an observation kind of research. Another kind of research you might have your students do are very simple interviews or surveys. So, for example, again, parts of the body, things you put on the body. Maybe a slightly more advanced students would work in groups and they would come up with 5 questions. They were going to ask their relatives, their parents, their aunties, their uncles, their friends and neighbors. And it could be very simple questions. What is your favorite colored clothing? How often do you wear summer shoes? Do you like to wear belts? What clothing do you not like? Very, very simple questions related to the grammar and the topics that they're studying. And this then is the basis for their research. Does that offer a sort of simple but concrete couple of examples?
Yeah, I think that's crystal clear. Yeah. So it's easier, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah. The audience in Bangkok, they agree. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bangkok. We can't hear you at all.
We agree with you that the research word is not that difficult. Yeah, and from your explanation is easier and yeah, it's more understanding. Thank you.
Okay, good. I got it that time. Thank you for repeating. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, that was an excellent question. Do we have any more questions or comments tonight?
Another comment is that perhaps the teacher should have a checklist as well. As you said, there are quite a large number of students, and in order to monitor, to follow up, whether they're doing according to their plan, perhaps we should have a checklist as well.
That's an excellent idea. And it could be in a checklist that only the teacher sees, or it could be the same one that the students are using, but almost like a grade book style, just sort of checking things off.
It's a good way to for classroom management.
Okay. All right. Well, we're close to the end of our time. Any last questions or comments?
มีคำถามอีกไหมคะหัวหินมีไหมคะไม่มีนะคะกรุงเทพไม่มีนะคะ
Okay.
I think your presentation, Cindy and Leslie, is very clear, understanding, and very thought-provoking. And we
Good. Well,
appreciate your presentation today. Thank you very much.
okay. Well, that was our goal, was to give you things to think about, and we can see that you're already working very hard in your groups. And I know you'll be working hard before we meet again next session. Please do try to bring some goals and a draft. Think of it as a draft of a checklist. Doesn't have to be your final one, but something that starts to make sense to you that we can begin to work with. And we'd like to thank very much our guest speaker tonight, Cindy Kiefer, for joining us. We'd like to thank Chula Longhorn, and a special thank you to Kunina, the regional English language assistant, as helper person. She's filling in for us in Kwai Hin tonight. Thank you to the Royal Thai Distance Learning Foundation and TOT. We're very excited to be well launched into this project now and look forward to bringing it along to its next phase.
Yeah, Leslie, before we finish, if you see the Bangkok site, we have a group of teachers for science and technology who are interested in doing the video conferencing as well, and they're visiting us right at the back of the room here. If you could see, yeah, perhaps
Well,
we
a
can.
special hello to our guests.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Good. All right. Well, I guess with that, then we'll close and say see you again soon. Hello, Kun Manisa.
Thank you.
All our dear friends.
Yeah, and a group of Dr. Nongnut and a group of teachers, science teachers who are interested in doing
good.
another project with you, I think. Yeah.
Good. Good. Well, we're going to try to work to replicate this kind of series to other project areas as well, to other topic areas. We look forward to working with those of you in the back of the room as well. Okay, some nice, friendly, familiar faces. Come see us in Oregon soon. We're waiting for you. Okay, well, thank you very much, Kokunka. Thank you. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Cindy and Leslie. Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
อาจารย์อย่าลืมการบ้านนะคะสำหรับคราวหน้านะคะค่ะไม่ต้องเป็นโกลกับเช็คลิสต์ที่สมบูรณ์ก็ได้ค่ะนะคะ